Hey folks, Randy Newberg here. I hope that you're doing great. I'm doing great. Never had a bad day in my life, and I'm not going to start a habit like that at this age. But anyhow, today we are continuing our series of application videos to try make sure that you get a tag in 2024. We want you to be out hunting in 2024. And the state we're going to talk about today is one of the harder states to make that happen. Today we're talking about Utah. So I'm going to go through some stuff, and this is probably one of the more in-depth videos we're going to do. But as in-depth as this video is, if you go out to Go Hunt and read their strategy articles on Utah, it's going to give you way more than this. So if you do go out there, use promo code Randy and they'll put $50 of credit in your gear shop. The deadline, right? We have to start with the deadline. It is April 25th, 2024, obviously 2024. April 25th at 11 p.m. Mountain Time. The draw results they promise us, will be out by May 16th. So that's pretty good. That's pretty quick turnaround, in what, 3 weeks? So that's good. But April 25th, don't miss it. Now, there's some changes for 2024. They're not super big, but I want to touch on them. That's the first thing we always look at. The non-resident hunting license price has went up from $72 to $120. I don't think, given how invested in terms of points and how high a point holder or point levels many people are at, I don't think that $48 increase is going to discourage too many non-residents. There's been some small increases in the price of tags for non-residents for elk and the once-in-a-lifetime species. If you're a muzzleloader hunter, they changed this year. It's going to either open sights or one power scopes. And they're going to start mandatory reporting for general deer and general elk. And we won't focus too much on those because most non-residents, when they apply in Utah, are focused on the limited entry tags, not the general tags. So now, residents are on a different system than non-residents. And this annoys some residents. Residents can only apply for one of the once-in-a-lifetime tags, and they can only apply for one of deer, elk, or pronghorn. Whereas non-residents, we can apply for everything. We used to be kind of like how it was for residents, but 15 years ago, Utah opened up the gates where non-residents can apply for every species. So you see this big bubble of people with 15 points in the non-resident pool. That was the year Utah changed the rule. So you see above 15, not too many point holders, and no matter the species. And then all of a sudden you get to 15, it's like, where did all these people come from? Well, where they came from is the rule changed. Now, they have two different systems for general deer. And I know people are like, what do you mean? We got to draw for general deer? Yeah. Non-residents, we got to draw for general deer. And that's on a preference point system. He or she with the most points gets the tag. All the other things we're going to talk about, and the tags that have the greatest interest are the limited entry tags, and they're on a modified bonus point system. So when I talk about general buck deer and limited entry deer, they're actually two different things. The general deer is going to be way more crowded. The season dates aren't nearly as good. Their units are not the quality units. The limited entry deer are going to be more expensive, nearly impossible to draw, and far fewer tags and far fewer number of units. So let's get into that. The general buck deer tag, we can apply for that, and it's $418. Got that taken care of. Now let's go to all the other things we can apply for. Limited entry deer, yep, $670. Limited entry elk, yep, $1,050. Antelope, $371. Now, there are 5 once-in-a-lifetime species, and it's moose, bison, mountain goat, desert bighorn, Rocky Mountain bighorn. And the price on those range anywhere from a little over $2,200 to over $2,400. Now, limited entry deer, limited entry elk, pronghorn, and the once in a lifetime species, they use the same system for all of them. And in Utah, you have to buy your $120 license, but you don't have to front the cost for everything else. You just pay a $15 application fee per species. So once you make that investment in Utah, it's not that difficult to accumulate points. Last year, Utah changed the elk system dramatically in 2023. The deck got reshuffled. They moved most of the September rifle tags into either the October mid-season or the November late season. And it really changed how people were applying. Now, I think what's going to happen, everyone's going to look at that data, and there's going to be a big change again this year. And then over the next few years, we're going to kind of see some, I don't know if equilibrium is the right word. We're going to see some consistency. But I think this year, we're still going to see a lot of back and forth because people are now seeing what the applicant behavior was in 2023, and they're going to use that as their basis for applying in 24. This is the real core of what you need to think about in terms of strategy, in terms of understanding how you can get the best value out of your investment in Utah, and that's to understand how this hybrid bonus point system works. I hope you got a lot of time. This is probably the most in-depth video I'm going to do on this. In the past, we've kind of gave it an overview, but I'm going to give it a little more detail this year. When I talk about a hybrid bonus point system, right? Well, yeah, the general buck deer on a preference point system, that's easy. Pretty much everybody gets that. Then we have this limited entry system that's on a hybrid bonus point system that is subject to a 10% cap on non-residents. The good news is we get a pool of tags for ourselves as non-residents. We're not competing with residents like we are in, say, Arizona, Idaho, and Montana. They say it's up to 10% and you're just there competing with residents. Here, we get our own pool of tags. So there's the first part of the draw. We all go into the first part of the draw, and some call it the max point draw, and I think that's a good way to say it. It's where your preference or your bonus points get converted to preference points. So half of the tags go into this max point draw, and if you're a really high point holder, you got an advantage because it is a true preference point draw over there for that half of the tags. They go by each hunt code. 10 tags, okay, 5 of them over here. And all of us are in there. Well, I'm kind of down here in the middle of the pack for most species or way down, so I'm not going to draw in this first part. And most of us aren't. This first part where they convert bonus points to preference points is really for the high point holders. Now, if you don't draw here, you get moved over to the second part of the draw. And the second part of the draw is a true bonus point draw. That's for the other half of the tag. So first part, convert everybody to bonus points to preference points for half the tags. Everyone who didn't draw there, go over here. And in the second part, well, it's a true bonus point draw. Where if you have 10 bonus points and I have 2, your probability is about 5 times better than mine. I might still win the raffle, but I'd have to pull a rabbit out of the hat for me to get it with 2 when you have 10. So now this is where things get a little bit funky in this draw and why you want to pay attention to how many tags get issued, because the first tag goes to the bonus point draw. Now, for whatever reason, Utah said the next 2 tags are going over here in the max point draw. So sometimes you'll see units that, okay, there were 2 tags last year, but it's pretty close to having 30 total tags. So if they bump the quota slightly, that means there's going to be a second tag in the max point draw. Well, you max point draw holders want to be paying attention to that stuff. And it keeps going like that. So first tag here, second and third tag there, 4th tag here, 5th tag there, 6th tag here, 7th tag there, and so on. So the reason I say that is you got to be thinking about this stuff. So not that anybody probably has to worry about being so lucky as to draw multiple tags in Utah, but here's the sequence of how it works and why, or not why, just explaining that in Utah, if you draw one of these 8 items, or the first 7 items, you're out for the rest of them. And what I mean by that is they go through an order, and you're only allowed 1 limited entry tag a year. So you can't draw a limited entry deer and limited entry elk, or you can't draw a limited entry deer and a once in a lifetime bison. So they start with limited entry deer. If you draw that, you get bonus points for all the other limited entry. Then they go to limited entry elk. If you were to draw that, you get bonus points for all the others below. And then they go to pronghorn. And then they go and do the sheep. Then they do moose. Then they do mountain goat. And the last of the limited entry they do is bison. So they go in that order. And if you draw in the, like I said, limited entry deer, you're out for all the other limited entry ones, and they just give you a point. Now, the last thing they do is general deer. And that's not affected. You can draw a limited entry tag and also draw a general deer. They don't, why they make it so complicated to say we're going to treat general deer as some different thing over here? They just do. So just know that there's a sequence to how this works. And not that you probably have to worry about being so lucky that you would draw 2 limited entry tags if you were lucky enough. But you're not going to, because by law, they only let you have 1 of them. And as quick as you get one, you're out of the rest of the drawings for the limited entry part. So a lot of people look at Utah and say, is it even worth applying here? And that's really the challenge we're talking about in Utah. If you look at GoHunt's Insider, you're going to quickly notice how low the draw odds are in Utah for pretty much every species, unless you're way up there in the point pool. I am an anomaly to some degree, because back in the day when I started, I drew elk with 4 points. I actually got selected as an alternate, and someone turned the tag back in, and I was the next in line. I drew limited entry deer with 6 points. Now, both of those were archery, so the more comfort you have using a primitive weapon, the better your odds are going to be. But I tell people that don't look at my good luck in those 2 instances as the norm, because most people in the Utah system are way up into the double digits. And so if you're just starting, it's going to be tough. And they call it point creep in Utah. You could see this coming from a mile away, especially with the half of the tags that are on a preference point system. Anytime you have a preference point system, you're going to have point creep when you have huge numbers of point buyers. So in Utah, it depends on the year. Sometimes it's half are point buyers and half actually apply for a tag. I went and looked at it this year, or for last year, for 2023. And 19,004 people actually applied for an elk tag. And I'm using elk because that's the most high demand species in Utah. So you got a little over 19,000 people who applied for a tag, and you got a little over 18,000 who just bought a point. So it's like each year about half apply for a tag and half just buy a point. Well, we only have 134 tags going to these highest point holders. We got another 189 tags last year that went in the bonus point draw. So that's 323 tags. If you take just the people, just the 19,000 who applied, that is 1 tag for every 59 applicants. So do that math. It's about 1.8% across the board, heavily weighted to the people with high points. So the odds are way lower for people with fewer points. Now, to this point creep thing, the number of point buyers in Utah for elk was over 18,000. So this is 18,000 people over here who aren't even showing up in your draw odds. And here's the real interesting part. If you dissect that 18,000 people in more detail, over 2,100 of them have more than 15 points, and over 5,200 of them have double-digit points. So last year, all those really high point holders, or these point buyers, these double-digit people, were competing mostly for the 134 tags that go to the highest point holder. So you add all that together, just the people who have double-digit points, and you got about, I don't know, 35 years worth of applicants already in the pool with double-digit points. And you got about another 13,000 that are somewhere between 1 and 9 points. I put all that out there just to let you know that in Utah, if you're just getting in, well, good luck. And if you're already in and you're not way at the top of the point pool, expect point creep to just keep going and going and going, and don't be surprised and don't be frustrated, because you got 18,000 people over here with a ton of points who are just waiting until their turn comes along and it's like, oh wow, I got enough points, I think I'll jump in this year, or it fits my calendar this year, or whatever reason. They jump in and they jump in line ahead of you. So I want to walk through an illustration that shows you what happens here in Utah. And I'm going to use my son Matthew, who has 20 non-resident elk points, and I'm going to put a screenshot up here, and it illustrates what last year's applications looked like. So you're going to see for elk on the Fish Lake unit and the LaSalle unit, people with Matthew's point level had 100% chance of drawing. He's right there on the cusp where there's some max point tags. He's right there where, with the points he had going into this year, well, last year that would have been enough to draw. Well, once you get below what he had, you can see it just goes downhill really, really fast. Now, some people look at it and say, well, this is the year Matthew's going to draw. He's got 20 points. Last year it took 20 points. He's in. He's guaranteed. Well, that's historical. It's not predictive. And here's what happens. A lot of other people over here on the sideline buying points who have, say, 21 or 22 or 23 points, they're going to look over there and say, wow, if I jump in this year, it looks like I would draw Fish Lake, or it looks like I would draw LaSalle. And they jump in. And now Matthew, he's like, oh man, this is my year. And all of a sudden, all the high point, the max point tags go to somebody with 22 points and 23 points. And he's like, how'd that happen? Well, a bunch of people over here who'd never shown up in these draw odds said, this is my year, I think I'm going to go. And they look at this same historical data and they jump in. So that's an example of point creep, and you just got to expect it. It is what's going to happen in any state where part of their draw or all of their draw is on a preference point system. So just think about this. If you add them all together, Utah has 115 years worth of non-resident applicants already in the system. 115 years worth of applicants. In other words, at the 300 tags plus or minus they give away each year, it's going to take 115 years to plow through all the people currently in the system. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm dying before 115 years. So my odds, I know, are close to zero, but I look at it, it's a $15 raffle ticket in a very big raffle, and I only get one ticket. And since I've already invested the cost in the Utah license, I can justify the 15 bucks. Anyhow, long explanation of how this draw works and a bit of a reality check of what your expectations should be. Now, if you have a youth in your house, they must have passed hunter education and they must turn 12 by December 31st, 2024. For hunter education, if you were born after December 31, 1965, you have to pass a hunter education course. A lot of people say, well, if I get too many tags this year, can I return one? Yeah, you can return a tag in Utah. 30 days before the season is kind of your window about getting points restored, about getting your tag fee refunded. It's pretty complicated. Go read the regulations and it'll explain all that. So what's the summary of all this Utah stuff? Utah has some great hunting. Utah has a lot of demand for that great hunting from non-residents. So expect that you're going to be here for a while once you jump into the game in Utah. And if it fits your budget, by all means, do it. But I hope that I've illustrated what kind of likelihoods you have here. And now with a $120 license and other things, if jumping into Utah is going to cost you the opportunity to do some of the other states where you have a real chance of drawing, well, make those a higher priority before you jump into Utah. But, if money's not the issue, by all means, play the game. Gamble. That's what Marcus says. We're just gambling here. But anyhow, all this is in way more detail out at Go Hunt, like I said. And go read their stuff, read their strategy articles. They have, as always, promo code Randy gets you $15 in their gear or $50 in their gear shop. But don't miss the deadline, April 25th, 11 p.m. Mountain Time. That's just like a no-no. If you miss a deadline, I don't know if we can be friends. Well, we can, but anyhow, Utah, great hunting, but a lot of demand and very low draw odds. Good luck.